It was a good time for a bye week for the Seattle Seahawks, right in the middle of the season. 8 games down, 8 games to go. Kind of just where you want to have your bye week. I think last year we had a early bye week, and I don't like it. But yeah, it was a bit of an interesting experience, and of course, this happens for every team once a year, where you're watching football throughout the week, and you know that your team is not playing, but um, it was well timed. I mean, I was looking at the injury report for the Cowboys game, and pretty much everybody played. But if you go down the list, both running backs were dealing with nagging injuries. They played through them. We had a backup center playing through an ankle injury. Cliff Averill had an ankle injury. Demarcus Dobbs playing through a shoulder injury. Jordan Hicks playing through a quadriceps injury. We had nagging injuries on so many guys in that Cowboys game. We dug it out, which is what's important, obviously, but also important is that we got into that bye week, and all those nagging injuries will hopefully be gone by the time we get to this week's Sunday. So that's good to see. Hopefully tomorrow when the injury report gets released, there's a lot fewer names on it. I just want to see maybe Jeremy Lane's name on it, maybe Paul Richardson's name on it, although maybe not even that, and everybody else just good to go. So the excuses are done. We should be about as healthy as you could hope going into this game against Arizona. I'm not really going to talk about the Arizona game specifically right now. It's early in the week. I'll talk about it more once we get a better look at what teams we're going to be looking at on Sunday night. So just bye week thoughts. I was watching football. Obviously, I still watch all the games just because the Seahawks don't play, and it is becoming apparent that the wild card in the NFC is going to be crowded, and we cannot count on that. Just off the top of my head, we got the Packers and Vikings. They're both 6-2, and one team's going to win the division, and the other team, they're not, but they're going to have 10 wins. And I think most people assumed that the Vikings would be the wild card, but something's wrong in Lambeau. Something's really not right with those guys. I don't know what it is, but both those teams, all they need to do is go 500 the rest of the way, and they'll be at 10 wins. So that's at least one wild card team that should definitely at least get to 10 wins. You've got the Falcons. They're fading, obviously. They're struggling now. They've lost a couple games they should have won, but they're not a bad team. And, just off the top of my head, I know they still got to play Tampa Bay again. They got to play the Saints again, both teams that they've already lost to. They still have 2 games against Carolina, and they might get swept because Carolina is clearly playing on another level. But that game in the Georgia Dome against the Falcons, there's no guarantee of anything. That they could drop that game real easy. I wouldn't be surprised if they did end up getting the split. And I think they still have to play Jacksonville. Yeah, I mean Atlanta. All they have to do is go 4-3 the rest of the way to get to 10 wins. And I think I just named 3 wins that they should be able to get on their schedule just off the top of my head. So yeah, I'm looking at it, and I don't think that the Falcons are going to fall off enough to where you can feel really good about slipping into the 6th seed. And, of course, we got what's going on in this division. So my main takeaway from the weekend is we cannot gun for that wild card. I know there are some fans out there who are already kind of aiming at the wild card in, for this season. But it's a crowded conference this year. It's not a great conference. We don't have a traditionally great team right now. I mean, the Packers are having all these problems on their defense. The Panthers, obviously, right now they look like the class, but their passing game is a little suspect, so they have weaknesses too. And I don't know about their pass rush until Charles Johnson gets back, although I think he does get back, and that'll obviously change things a lot then. But it's not a team top heavy conference, but there are some teams that are going to get wild card spots with really strong records, 10 wins or more. So things are getting kind of crunched up for this Seattle Seahawks team. It's not quite win the division or bust, but I think it's looking that way. I mean, I broke this down a couple weeks ago, but if we win out, we will win the division because if we win out, we'll beat Arizona twice. And if we beat Arizona twice, they can do no better than 12-4. But one loss, and suddenly things get scary. If you lose one more game, Arizona probably wins the division, and then you're looking at wild card. You hope that you beat the Vikings. That way you get in over them. You don't know how the tiebreakers are going to break out against the Falcons. The Rams, they don't look like they're going away yet. They're 4-4. They're playing pretty good football. They might be there at the end. Maybe a couple teams in the NFC East will make a run, although probably not. So even though I was relaxing on the bye week, it's still stressful to look at this and know that the mistakes of the first half of the season have left us with no room for error. I mean, and this is just to get a 3 seed, guys. I mean, I'm not even talking about like trying to get a first round bye. I mean, we would need Carolina to completely collapse down the stretch and go 3-5. We would need the Packers to keep losing, and the Packers are losing right now, but we would need them to lose at least 3 more games, which is not likely. It's a cluster. I mean, I miss 2013 when it was simple. It was like, we were here. Every other team in the conference was here. And that whole season, we just kept winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. And we never really were threatened that much at the top of the conference. And even last year, I mean, we needed some tiebreaker stuff to go our way, but we knew there was a good chance of it even when things weren't looking so great. If all we had to do was just win out. But it is frustrating because there are so many guys on this team that are playing so well, and a couple guys messing things up over those first 4 losses might be enough to put us in a position that we just cannot quite bounce back from. But there's no sense in bitching about it now. It's all about what you do second half. And, if we win out, that guarantees us the 3 seed pretty much. I'll be proud of these guys. I'll be proud of these guys for fighting back and putting themselves in a position to do some damage later on, but it is tough. So, to talk about the second half, we've got Paul Richardson back. So, the offense is completely healthy with the exception of Ricardo Lockett, who was a bit player on offense anyway. The only guy on offense who we don't have, who we may be expected to have, other than that, would be Alvin Bailey. He's not injured, he's just fat. Although he looked pretty good the last game. Maybe he'll start getting starts at right tackle. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't know what Paul Richardson is going to bring because there are 3 areas on this team that after 8 weeks you have to be a little concerned with. Obviously, the offensive line, but the offensive line has shown improvement over the past 4 games, especially the last 2. So we'll hope they keep it up for the second half, and there's reason to have hope for that. And then you have the wide receivers, and to talk about that for a second, Doug Baldwin is who he is. He's a good wide receiver. He does his job. He runs good routes. He has good hands. He makes plays, but if you pair him up against a Darrelle Revis or a Josh Norman or, Richard Sherman, you wouldn't do that because Richard Sherman, they play on the same team, but those guys can take him away completely one-on-one. If you put one of those elite cornerbacks on Doug Baldwin, he might only catch 1, maybe 2 passes the whole game. It's who he is. He's not going to get any better than that. Jermaine Kearse, he is who he is. He's a decent wide receiver. He can make some big plays down the field. He has good hands. He does his job. He knows the offense. But there are going to be 4 to 6 games a season where he is just on a milk carton. He's gone. He's not getting open. He's not getting the ball thrown his way. He doesn't do anything. We've seen a couple times this year. Against Green Bay, he gave us nothing. Against, I think it was Carolina, he gave us nothing. There are just going to be those games where Jermaine Kearse doesn't give you anything. So those guys are who they are, and we just have to live with that. But the guys who could take this receiving core up to the next level in the second half is the 2 young guys. Tyler Lockett is the obvious one. A lot of people think that this guy is going to be a star next year or maybe the year after. I can see it. I'm not guaranteeing anything. I mean, he is small. He is primarily a speed wide receiver, but he can do more than that. His hands are small, but his hands are so good. He seems like he doesn't drop anything, which is amazing given his hands are so small. But Tyler Lockett, um, could he maybe realize some of that star potential in the second half of the season? Because I'm always cautious about putting too much pressure on a rookie. One second. I got to get my Marco Rubio on. Um, I'm always cautious about putting too much on a rookie because you just don't know how long it's going to take for them to get the game. You don't know how long it's going to take for them to pick things up. But Lockett's already shown some understanding of how to play in the NFL. He's getting open down the field. Wilson has missed big plays to him a couple times this year already. Lockett could really take this receiving core to the next level if he can realize some of his star potential now in the second half of his rookie season. It's a lot to ask. It's on the table. The Paul Richardson thing, I'm really torn on this because I liked Paul Richardson last year, but he wasn't dominant. He was a fairly capable role player who helped fill in when Percy Harvin went AWOL, and then he got hurt in the playoffs and it sucked. But Paul Richardson, he's fast as hell. I mean, apparently he's gotten faster since last year. Apparently he was clocked doing a 4.2880, which is faster than he was before the hamstring injury, which I don't know how that's possible, but you hear about speed like that and you're like, oh my God, this guy's going to be so good. But last year he was fast too, and I didn't see him getting big separation down the field. I didn't see him making big plays. But he was a rookie, so hopefully he didn't lose the ability to develop because of the injury. Obviously, the injury was very significant, and hopefully it didn't stun his growth because a guy that fast, I gotta believe there's room for him in an offense. But in a lot of ways, Paul Richardson is a poor man's Tyler Lockett. He does everything Tyler Lockett does, just not as good. And if that's the case, where does he fit in on this offense? I don't know. So that's basically what I'm looking for in the second half in terms of the wide receivers. Those two guys, if they can step up and take this wide receiver core to the next level, awesome. But I'm cautious about counting on it. The other interesting question in the second half, cornerbacks. Richard Sherman, he's locked in as the number one cornerback. He's not having his best season, but he's having a really good season. He's still playing at a high level. Still one of the best cornerbacks in football. The number two spot is going to get very interesting. Kerry Williams, I defend Kerry Williams more than most Seahawks fans. I think he's done some good stuff this year, but I cannot deny he has done some very bad stuff this year. He was bad against the Bengals. He was bad against the Panthers. He has forced us to get out of our normal defense and has forced Sherman to have to follow number one receivers around all the time, which is not something we like to do. But Kerry Williams, it's been hit or miss over the first half of the season. Now we got Jeremy Lane coming back. Jeremy Lane was a badass nickel cornerback, but I don't know if his skill set and his talent level is good enough to go to the next level and say, I'm going to go get the number two cornerback or number two wide receiver. I don't know. And coming back off that major injury that basically broke every bone in his body, you don't know what he's going to be able to give you this year. I'd like to put him at special teams gunner to replace Ricardo Lockett, but you don't know if he's going to be able to handle that because of the injury. So it's tough. And then you got Deshaun Sneed, who was playing really well for us. Much better than I expected, but I don't know if he can handle full-time number two. Marcus Burley's been playing great this year, but now he's got the broken hand and he's playing with the cast. I don't know when it comes off. Please tell me it comes off soon, because I might put Marcus Burley at the number two if the cast came off, but with the cast, I don't know. And then you've got Ty Smith. He's too raw. He's not ready to do it yet. Thurl Simon's on injured reserve. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens at that number 2 cornerback spot. I don't know what I want, but that's going to help determine the season because most teams don't throw at Richard Sherman. They don't. Most teams don't even try to mess with that. It's all up to that number 2 cornerback to do something out there to make it other teams pay when they go at him. And right now, Kerry Williams, he's not making plays. He's not picking off passes. He's not forcing fumbles. He's forced the one fumble in week 1 on a blitz. He's not hitting people hard. I mean, Byron Maxwell and Brandon Browner got burned all the time too, but they made plays to make up for it. And that's how they got paid. Right now, Kerry Williams isn't giving anything other than some games he'll cover adequately. But I don't want to take a really good inside cornerback like a Marcus Burley or Jeremy Lane and force them to play outside cornerback and see them struggle. So I don't know what this solution is, but if Kerry Williams is a liability later on in the season when we're going up against, I think he's probably going to stick Michael Floyd in this upcoming Arizona game. He's going to stick probably Martavis Bryant when we play the Steelers in a week or two. If that becomes a problem, there are a couple other guys, but it's hairy right now, and this is not a position I ever expected this team to be in, to be low on cornerback depth. But right now, I don't know. Okay, long video, but I just wanted to ramble on about bye week stuff as it came to me. The only other thing I can say is we need Frank Clark in the second half of this season. Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett, Jordan Hill, those guys, they're playing a lot of snaps, and they're balling. They're playing phenomenal football this year, all of them. But Frank Clark is going to get more snaps in the second half. Got to utilize him. I've been impressed with what I've seen from him so far, but he's got to take it up another level. I think maybe we were expecting too much of the guy going into this season, but it's time for him to live up to at least part of that. So I'll make a pregame video for Arizona before that game, but going to have to take a look and see what teams the two teams will be fielding. And it was a good time to have a bye week. See you guys later.